We might just take a new position, so friendly. It's the only way you're gonna make me feel better. Really mad.
Everybody had one there. Up here. And they offered to share, so.
No, I have plenty.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a good idea.
Good.
I think you have one there. I appreciate What's that? It's not.
I know. I know. Maybe next time.
Look at Terry's
We were waiting for Mr. Skirpon. He was
Okay.
trying to log in. I guess we waited long enough. All right. We can start. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We had an executive session, discuss personnel issues, matters of property. At this point, I'd like to recognize any resident or taxpayer of this area school district wishing to address the board about title programming or any other matter, concern, or interest properly raised in public session. Well, ladies before gentlemen there, so go ahead, Mrs. Berry.
First, if I can, just question. Are comments now and then at the end, did I misunderstand that way back then, that you have a comment period in the beginning and the end?
Oh, we'll have a question and, yeah,
Is that
period at
correct?
the end.
Okay, I just want to make sure, I thank you, go.
Yep.
I'm Margaret Berry. I reside at 816 North Wilbur Ave here in Sayre. I come before you here tonight as a parent, educator, and former member of your board to plead with you to immediately post all open professional positions. Our high school students need a tech ed teacher, a band teacher, an English teacher to replace the one who's currently waiting to transfer into ESL immediately, and a long-term English sub through February 22nd if you grant tonight's extended leave, for which there's been no certified teacher since August. So as of today, that is 90 school days without a certified teacher in a tested content area. If the leave is extended, it becomes 112 days, as well as a business education teacher for next year. Our elementary school students need a certified school nurse who also serves the whole district as the certified school nurse, and the band music position mentioned impacts them immediately as well. Next year, they'll need multiple grade level teachers, a speech therapist, and a district-wide school psychologist. I know there's talk that the administration is considering combining the tech ed position with the business ed position next year, and they are two completely different curriculums and positions that require separate teachers. I currently teach in a STEM high school, and while the standards might sound like they overlap, they clearly do not. The STEM curriculum will not cover computer applications, business law, accounting, or personal finance, which the state says every student should have in high school, and the STEM teacher will not be qualified to teach such important content. So I ask that you will absolutely not combine those positions. SARE has a rich history of success in future business leaders of America, and we certainly can't let that opportunity be eliminated for our students either. And the business department does offer numerous dual enrollment courses that our kids benefit from as well. With regard to that STEM tech ed position, Mr. Brander had a very good curriculum and a full course load, and I am extremely frustrated that our students have sat in class with no instruction since approximately November 30th, when Mr. Brander departed for his new position in another district. My son and his classmates have not had an assignment or participation grade entered since November 23rd. So as of today, that is 29 school days without instruction. For junior high, that may be only 15 class days, but for high schoolers, it is 29 class days. There are exactly 2 participation grades entered in his grade book for the entire quarter, dated November 16th and November 23rd. How is that providing our kids a free, appropriate education? It is exceedingly frustrating to me and other parents who brought this to my attention, because I addressed this issue directly in this room to this board weeks before Mr. Brander departed. And Mrs. Agnew and Dr. Jill assured me that moving students to a different elective was not necessary, nor an appropriate course of action, because there would be a substitute. And to quote them, the sub would be able to instruct using the lesson plans that Mr. Brander prepared for that sub. Well, you can survey parents here, some of which who their kids are in that class. You can ask students tomorrow, and I will give you the screen print of my kid's grade book as of today. And you will see that no instruction is being provided and no grades are entered. So again, I beg you to please transfer students to a different elective or create one that a sub can actually teach content in. How is that even legal? We have a half a school year left. I would also ask you to look at different recruitment methods to fill all these open positions, because simply posting on the website or on educational websites is clearly not working. We can't use the same methods we used 5 to 20 years ago, because the candidate pool is shrinking for various reasons, and it's going to continue to do so. In the past 2 weeks, I have contacted universities in the state who offer the curriculums for the elective teachers needed here at SARE. And yes, the candidate pool is small, but they indicated that they do have recent graduates and upcoming graduates. But schools contact them now, not in May. Last January, in the second board meeting, we accepted Mike Francis' retirement as an English teacher, and we started interviewing in May. There's going to be no candidate pool. Why are we waiting? You accepted retirements at the last board meeting. We posted a volleyball coach's job. That's great. I'm thrilled. But what about our professional positions? Why are they not yet posted? We need to contact these people now to entice them to come here and at least interview. We pay well. We have good benefits compared to the rest of the state. In those specialty areas, the pool is incredibly small. I also have contacted people from around the area who may have had family members who've left the area who may want to go back. I've talked to people that have education degrees that might want to try and be certified in our specialty areas. And I've talked to people who have degrees in those specialty areas that might want to work on earning teacher certification underneath an emergency certificate, because the need is there. But I feel as though we don't even give our kids here at SARE a chance, because we wait on everything. I've been using my free time to do that because I do care about the education for all the kids. It's not about my kids. It never was just about my kids. Extracurriculars, yeah, they're important. But that's not the most important thing. Your primary responsibility is to provide an education to our kids at SARE, and that responsibility is not being met. In the last board meetings that I was on and sat at that table, we spent more time talking about spectacular trick-or-treat, the fall event at Satterley Creek Environmental Center, and Mr. Cole's PSBA report than we did the matters directly impacting our children's education. Yes, those community events are important. They do build morale and school pride. But you are in the business of educating our kids first. Okay? Those other things are not fixing our problems. You can say, well, this is our meeting. That might have worked 20 years ago, but education is in a dire crisis here. And we need to address the problems here in the public and be transparent. I would like to ask you, since we've had more need than any other district in the region for professional positions, that you would take the same urgency filling those positions for our kids that you did when Dr. Sherry Griggs left and we needed a superintendent, and when you wanted to add 2 more administrative positions last year. Superintendents are important, administrators are important, but they can't teach the kids in the classroom. They have another job to do. And when there is not a proper teacher in the classroom, we are failing our kids. There is a reason that numerous educators from SARE returned their children to their home districts this year, and other families left SARE for nearby districts as well. And it's not just for sports. The families are upset that their kids don't matter anymore like they used to in SARE. I do want to thank Mr. Skirpon for pushing the consent agenda and trying to push for a masking mandate at SARE at the last meeting, because we do need to use these meetings to address our problems publicly, where the true stakeholders are here and can know what's going on in our district. You have over 557 kids who have been close contacts at the high school. They've not been properly educated. We were told they'd have tutoring upon return. Almost all these parents here have had kids be close contacted, not 1 minute of tutoring. We hired a learning loss person. Maybe that's got to be their job this year. Our kids are not going forward. They are going backward. One of our sports coaches had a meeting with 8th grade students, doesn't even think they'll get a team next year because, to quote the kids, we're not coming back to SARE, it's falling apart. That's pretty sad. The future of the SARE students is a monumental responsibility for us, and one that we all need to take very seriously in the coming days and months, because their success has been greatly impeded by poor decisions made in recent time. And when you go to ask, because I'm sure you're thinking, why didn't I fix things when I was on the board? Every one of you that was ever here knows that I was the most vocal proponent of fixing our academic issues and adding more educational opportunities than you wanted to do. But the answer was always, oh, that's administration's job. That's what we pay them to do. Well, out of frustration, I gave somebody else the opportunity to change your minds and fix things in this district, and I certainly hope they do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Paper of
Berry.
the grade book? Would anyone like to see this?
I would be happy to take that.
Standard procedure, by the way, in a public institution is 1 grade in a grade book a week.
Would you, Margaret,
What?
would you be able to share that so I can go back through? I'd like to
I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
I think the paper needs it.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Can I stand right here?
Sure.
Jordan Shaw, 54 Warren Street. I'm here this evening for, I'm sure the reason everybody else is, we have concerns. My wife and I are both SARE graduates. One of the biggest things we took from our time at SARE High School was that resting pride, underdog mentality, little school with a big heart. That mentality is part of me, and I lean on it daily in the real world. It's also part of the way we parent our kids. We tell our kids when faced with adversity, how you respond says a lot about your character. Are you willing to push through and persevere, or just quit because times are tough? That's where one of my biggest concerns comes into play. In recent months, I feel as though our district doesn't fight hard enough for our kids, for our programs, our services, our special events, etc. I know the last 2 years have been anything but easy, but to me and others across the community, it feels like when a problem or a challenge arises, we're too quick to wave the white flag and concede. I'm not going to pretend I know how to run a school district because I don't. I also understand that things can change daily, if not hourly, within guidelines and everything else over these past 24 months. But in the event a problem presents itself, if we can safely do that event, activity, program, whatever it is, we should leave no stone unturned in an effort to make it happen. I feel many times when issues arise, our district's immediate thought is, should we just cancel, instead of what do we need to do to make this happen? I also feel as though We need to think of the message it sends to our kids when we're so quick to just err on the side of cancel. I can't think of anything more worthy to fight for than our kids' school-age experiences, education, and futures. I also think our district tends to be reactive in nature as opposed to proactive. With the resignations of several staff members and teachers over the past few years, it makes us in the community wonder, are we diving in to see why they're leaving? Naturally, you're going to have some people leave for other jobs that fit their lives better. But staff members leaving for the same position at less pay, or staff members leaving for a position that requires them to commute when we didn't need to commute while it's there. I'm not implying they're all leaving because of SARE issues, and I'm not saying we're not looking into them. I'm simply wondering if we're trying to get a reason for these departures to try to prevent them in the future. Transparency is also something I feel our district can do a better job of. We understand there's a lot of tough decisions and discussions that take place at the district level on a regular basis. I understand it's not realistic to think the district can check in with every household on every issue. However, when these difficult discussions are on the horizon, us parents having a heads up could help you gather feedback. This way parents don't read of a policy change or a program being put on hold or a co-op or something after the vote has already taken place. We understand that decisions are difficult, we just like to be involved. In recent weeks, I've learned of a new parent advocacy group that's going to meet with the superintendent about wide-ranging issues. I think this is a great step towards gaining that transparency I'm referring to. I would hope a lot of what's been said already, and what I'm saying and what others are going to say will be taken into consideration. Every time we lose a program, a team, a teacher, a student from our district, we lose part of our community. That tight-knit Redskin family that I mentioned earlier. We're a small landlocked district with limited opportunities and growth for population. However, SARE people are as loyal and passionate about their school as you're going to find anywhere. With open dialogue like this, there's no reason we can't keep that SARE school sense of community and grow what we already have and what makes us a special place.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Good evening, Timothy Shaw, 315 South Elm. Couple questions first. Last night, am I correct in being told this, that you guys put out on Facebook before the staff knew the school was undelayed today? Can anybody answer that question?
So I can tell you how that happens. So when I make the decision for a delay or a closure, I do a group text to the administrative team, which is inclusive of our tech department, our administrative assistant, business manager, and then they all have jobs to do. There's like a tree that occurs.
Right, okay.
So Mr. Claypool was in charge of reaching out to maybe radio and TV. The tech department sends out the message to the staff. My assistant puts it on Facebook, so a lot of things kind of happen simultaneously. And so, right, I just, so it kind of also depends on where they might be and when they receive that text.
I was just thinking you put it on Facebook long before your staff knew, because I texted the staff member right after I saw it on Facebook, like, what are you talking about? Perfect,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's all right.
Not
And
cut
just,
off, but not answering the question.
all right.
COVID, I know you're doing COVID, more stuff playing with COVID. Listen, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I cannot figure out for the life of me how the person that sleeps in this room here and I sleep in this room, they're quarantined, but I'm not. We live in the same house. How does that happen? And I'm not talking about my house in general. I'm saying all around. That just does not make sense to me. If she can't go to school, why can her brother go to school? They eat at the same table, all that. So somehow we have to do a better job on that. I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, but we have to figure that one out.
So let me just a follow-up, Tim, on that. So household contacts is what you're asking about?
Yeah.
Okay, not close contacts at school?
No.
Okay.
So I'm close contact at school, but my brother or sister live in the same house. They're not quarantined, but I am. I'm a little confused on that, but anyhow. I spoke last meeting about bullying. I don't know the answer, but if a child is being bullied and he or she retaliates after 5 months in, 6 months in now, and he or she gets in trouble for standing up for him or herself, I'm sorry. I don't, unless they pull a gun or a knife, and I don't mean to say that, but, and if they stand up for themselves, say something, do something, what else are they supposed to do? Unfortunately, I know the staff has tried, but we have to do something else. Something else has to be done. I beg you, I said that last week, you're gonna see me until it's taken care of. And I know you probably don't wanna see me, but you have to. So please do that. Then I have one other one. Let's see, I typed it up, let's see if I did it right. On the agenda, I think on the school calendar for next year, we're having 17 early dismissals, maybe 2 hours long. A couple holidays, I think, maybe in there somewhere. If my math is correct, it's 34 hours of lost education time for our kids next year before we even start the school year, so to speak. With the weather here in Sarah the last 2 weeks and going forward, we're probably going to lose a few more days of school and so forth, and I really think that's hurting us. When the fall athletes and the spring athletes leave for their sports, they really hurt. A lot of kids, was already mentioned about COVID not being taught. I worked in schools for almost 4 years being a showman. I talk to people every day from every community on the East Coast. They've never heard of such a thing. They get out 2 hours early for in-service, I think is it, what, every 3 weeks or something like that? They're just shocked. Parents I talk to from other districts don't understand. Me as a parent, I'm frustrated because your teachers are supposed to be teaching our kids during the day. Okay, I understand you have to have in-services for the teachers all day, whatever. I spoke to a few teachers who told me they played, what's the name of the word? I lost the thought here. Played, before he beat it down. Played, the new game where you throw the cornhole, or whatever it is, during one of those in-services. I'm not sure that's what we need. My son goes to Low Tech. If you have a half day and on that Wednesday and he doesn't have school, he has no school that day. How fair is that to the Low Tech students? I don't understand that. And maybe I'm screwing up, but I'm trying to read off what I typed. We have 7 in-service days if I read the calendar right. No other school district that I can find has more than that, so I don't understand that as well. If we continue this process in my next 3 years, or this year, for next year, that'll be 3 years running, that's 12 school days we're missing out on. I'm not sure that's really a good thing. I hope that you wouldn't approve that tonight. I hope you reconsider, look it over, and maybe in 3 months, figure out a better solution, okay? We do have a teacher on this board, I'm not singling her out, but the value of teaching is having the kids in the classroom, not out playing on the pond and the ice or all that when they should be in school, for us not to do anything substantial. Our teachers at Sarah are excellent. I'm not going to say anything about them negatively. They're excellent. They try their best, but I think they're also, I don't want to use that word, cheated a little bit because they're not guided properly. And I don't want to badmouth administration either, but there's a disconnect. That's the word I'm going to use. There's a disconnect somewhere along the line. I don't know where, whether it be the superintendent, the administration, I don't know, but somehow there is a disconnect, and I don't know if you guys are like me, but I talk to everybody. Talk to your teachers in a school and ask them some of their feelings. You'd be surprised what you get, okay? Some love some of the things, some hate, but you have to know the temperature of your district, and I think you guys are not, and I don't mean to be mean, I don't think you're knowing the temperature of your district. So please, whatever you do, don't waste the kids' time having those half-day Wednesdays for whatever. It's better off than being in school. Thank you very kindly, have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaw.
So,
Anyone else?
If I could just respond to Mr. Shaw, the calendar for next year is only on for discussion this evening. There'll be no vote on that calendar. We bring it forward for discussion purposes first.
Okay,
Okay, so thank you.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Moving on with the agenda. So our consent agenda, we just have items 1 and 2. Need a motion to approve sections 1 and 2 of the agenda?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can we read out just the very basic bullet points so everyone knows what we're approving? Not the board, but I mean people listening in.
Sure.
I think that's a great idea, actually, because it did, probably because of the holiday, but it was posted kind of late.
Okay, so for the consent agenda, we have 2 sections. The first one is the minutes from the last board meeting. The second one has to do with operations. And with that, we have finance, personnel, a field trip, and some policy review, and then PSBA section in those. Would you like any more? Did you guys not get a copy? Do we have copies of the agenda for
No, but there are a
everybody?
lot of people listening at home, I think, is what she's referring
Okay.
to, that may not have seen the agenda because of the holiday. I think it only posted today. I think that's what you were referring to.
Should have posted Friday, but that's
Well, it
okay.
wasn't out there Friday. Maybe late. It wasn't when I looked up Friday.
All right.
Because I asked
So-
Jimmy.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Katrina, I have to abstain on one of the bills.
We have a motion and a second.
So I would like to table, under personnel, the resignation of Katie Blood. I received a message from her this morning, so I would like to table 3A.
Okay. So we're tabling 3A. And Mr. Shaw, what did you have to,
I have to abstain on one of the bills.
on one of the bills? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what number it is. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, so roll call, Mr. Jacob?
We'll begin with Mrs. Agnew.
Yes.
Ms. Olson.
Yes.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Mr. Hickey.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Riley. Mr. Shaw.
Yes, abstain on number 53 in the bills, please. Thank you.
Mr. Skirpon.
I think he's dead.
Mr. Katrina.
Yes. All right, so the next part of the agenda is the revision of the health and safety plan. So I'd like to recommend the board approve option A or B of the updated health and safety plan for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year, and Dr. Delosio is going to go over those 2 options for us.
Sure. So they're both very similar. Option A and option B are very similar. And option B is the one that Mr. Claypool jumped in because we worked on this collectively together. Option B is the one that currently follows the CDC guidelines. Option A would give parents the option that if their child is identified as a close contact, that they could remain in school as long as they wear a mask for the 10 days of the quarantine. So that's option A. And so when the board votes, you could pick option A or B or neither, because you don't want either of the 2 plans. So when you take that into consideration, that is the change or the proposal that we have moving forward for option A and B. Mr. Claypool, do you have anything addition to add to that?
No, I think that pretty well covers it.
Okay.
What was B? I think you mentioned A.
Yeah, so B is the current plan that is in place under the CDC guidelines. That is correct. But we have to, under state code or state rules, bring the plan forward every 6 months for a review and a revision. So we have no changes to the current plan. That's option B. And option A would be a change for current close contacts. Okay?
And just to
Thanks.
clarify a little further, in option B and A, there are a lot of wording changes, but nothing that significantly changes in B from what the current plan is. So there is some wording shuffles, but nothing, that's a dramatic change, where in A, we're talking about eliminating quarantines, or making a parent choice for quarantines of close contacts in school.
I'm happy to hear that, Mr. Claypool, but I do have a question. Repeatedly, we've been told, well, even if your child wears a mask in school, if you're a close contact, you're a close contact, because at the high school, the teachers can't identify who wears a mask. I know at the elementary, they mark it on their attendance every day. What is the new plan in place so that kids who have to wear a mask because they were a close contact? I think we have to change something at the high school if we're legitimately gonna follow that. I'm all for that, don't get me wrong, 557 kids out of a building of this size is astronomical, but I do need to say that somehow staff isn't getting the message. If they know they're supposed to be, I mean, we at our district have to check when kids, each period in the seating chart, yep, this one's wearing masks today. I don't know what the plan is here, but we've been told repeatedly that, no, doesn't matter if your child wears a mask, because we can't identify mask wearers. So you may have to just look into that if it goes into place.
Yeah, I'll have to check into that a little bit, Margaret. My understanding was, since the changes in the beginning of January from the CDC, that we were letting teachers know, this person can come back in 5 days with a mask, but they have to be masked for the next 5 days. So I'll check into it.
If you're telling them, they're not listening, so maybe there needs to be a separate meeting to clarify that, because I know at the elementary it's happened since the beginning of the year, but that
So
message isn't loud and clear at the high school. Maybe
So
they don't
option A.
listen. Maybe they're like their students. They don't listen well, I don't know.
Imagine
I've had
that.
experience in my own family where it's not communicated. No one at the school knows who's quarantined and who's not. We are actually calling in to say, hey, do you know this one's having exposure?
So how does that fall as far as confidential? Is that what
So to
they're-
leave it up to the parents, I think is totally wrong. They're not following it as it is.
Right.
If you make it less strict, they're going to follow it even less.
I guess I would say the thing I would say is there's two types of close contact, right? There's the one close contact at school, and I know we spend huge chunks of time every day going through, pulling attendance logs, saying, okay, Barry Claypool was in this seat in this class and this seat in another class, and if he was positive, then these people were within 6 feet, and those kinds of things. So, I know the school contact one is thoroughly checked through. There have been times where we've quarantined people that, maybe were outside of those parameters and things I'm aware of, but when it's a family close contact or a contact or a positive that happens, that, people have to make us aware of that and of those close contacts. So, I guess that's what I would basically address that as. So you're saying in school, there's people who are close contacts that
With people that have been exposed and that
don't get identified?
Correct.
Okay. Now I'll check into that too.
I think unfortunately though, sometimes it has to do with honesty, right?
Correct.
And I'm just going to send my kid to school.
That was my point. If they're already not being honest with the strict ones, you make it less strict, there's going to be chaos. No one's going to know what's
But I think
going
I think on the flip side of it too, there's those that are completely fine, but they've been out of school for a number of days, sometimes months. They're not having any symptoms, and if the choice is to be in school and wear a mask all the time, being in school is where we want these kids to be.
Definitely.
But I think they also were saying, Margaret, wasn't it, that keeping track of that student is what the problem.
The
Right.
teachers track
Right.
every, I know they only have one class possibly, but 6th grade has 3 or 4 movements.
Right.
I have 7 different class periods. I think they have to have some kind of form that they make sure they check so that they know, okay, student A is in my room, there has to be a list for them so they can make sure that person's masking.
Right.
It's right in Skyward. There's 2 different codes that show up when they went in. They were going to see your son's thing. It says there's a code for wearing a mask and there's a code for out for close contact. Yeah.
So if
Teachers
you're
in
getting
each-
in for close contact, the mark will be there. So I guess it has to be put in writing to them, and somewhere discipline has to come into play.
Yeah.
If these people aren't doing what they're supposed to, they're directive. And, they'll tell you they're not clear, you guys will say that they're told it's in Skyward. Somewhere it needs to be put in writing, and they need to sign off. And if they don't do it, because our kids are getting cheated. 557 close contacts is just unbelievable. That's this whole building, if you quantify it. That's crazy. So somebody has to take some responsibility to make sure that the people that need to mask are masking. And it can't be on a principal or assistant principal because they're not going to see the kids kids all day.
Right.
It's
Right.
not a blended individual teacher.
Yeah, the teacher responds.
So we gotta have a process for it.
The principal and assistant principal have other responsibilities, I hope that wouldn't fall on them too.
Exactly.
Holy cow. That's
So
not
maybe
even
there
right.
needs to be a training where they're shown what to do, you know? Because they claim they don't know. That came right from your school nurse. We cannot identify, teachers do not have time to identify who wears a mask. That literally came from your school nurse here. And also from Naomi Abbey.
And that should be an easy 2-second thing when they walk in the classroom.
You gotta take attendance anyway.
Right.
Maybe they don't know how to print out seating charts out of Skyward with the code on them. Maybe they need some training on that, but if you print out a seating chart with a student's picture on it right out of Skyward, the code is there, whether it's an X, a Q, or whatever. It's a very easy thing to do.
And could the mask, students sit with a mask and unmasked, alleviate that problem?
If they chose to,
Oh, I don't know, can you make that, I'm just
no,
asking.
that's segregated.
Can you repeat
But I can
that?
tell you our junior high basketball team asked to do that. and they didn't.
Hold on a minute, Mark, one at a time. Can you repeat that?
The people that have to wear masks, and they sit on one side and the unmasked on the other, make it simpler, or no?
He's saying. kids
Oh,
afford
split the
them.
room.
Oh,
Yeah.
He addressed that at a previous meeting, that's segregation.
Sorry.
He did.
That's making my heart palpitate a little bit. Sorry, Mr. Shaw.
I wasn't trying to give you, I'm just
But
saying.
No.
Mrs. Green
So if I
said-
could just give a little bit of information about the close contact list that you had said. So the administration, the nursing staff have a list of close contacts on a spreadsheet that's kept since the beginning of the year. As Margaret has said, the number 557 close contacts singly here at the high school level. And at the elementary, Mrs. Morel, what do we have? Close contacts, 6 from the beginning of the year?
Well, it's
I think
Well,
there's
thank
between
you.
maybe 12 and 16 at this
Okay,
point.
so in the teens, right, a very vast difference. We know that there's space at the elementary and that their desks are 6 feet apart, different than the enrollment size and the class size here. But the staff members, including the nurse, and anyone helping with the close contacts has access to that spreadsheet. And they put it into Skyward, which shows up on the attendance roster, for the teachers to be able to see who is wearing a mask at which days and who is quarantined. So that's absolutely there and available for the staff to see.
Well, maybe on tomorrow's early dismissal day, you guys could cover that seriously with them, because there's a disconnect somewhere. And Mrs. Green just told me when we got here that the junior high basketball players asked if they could mask and sit together in classes because they have an upcoming tournament and they don't want to not play. And the teachers told them no, they couldn't do that.
That they couldn't mask, or they couldn't sit
Sit
together?
together with masks. They're trying to not be exposed.
Oh, to protect the upcoming
They're
tournament.
trying to segregate themselves, to protect themselves. Gotcha, gotcha.
Proactive in the measures they're taking.
Sure, just
Don't
be
no
safe.
mask, be-
Yeah, don't be afraid.
No, but I understand that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting at too, like, certain people want to sit, to be safe, so go ahead.
You can't force it.
No.
So,
Any other questions?
any other questions or comments about?
I have a quick question. So someone's quarantined, who at the school is responsible to tell them when they're allowed to come back? What date? Is it the principal, the nurse, both? Who is it?
So it's a combination thereof. So I know that, depending on the office staff and availability, the principals are overseeing things, there's a script, right? So if I'm calling a parent, sometimes when there's an abundance of, which we had at the high school last week, the support staff down in our offices were helping as well. So Barry's assistant, my assistant, Dr. Tejan's assistant, they all jump on and help to make those calls and given that information from a spreadsheet. So the script is that they're to tell the parent that they're a close contact, the last exposure date was such day, that if you choose to allow your child to wear a mask on day 6, as long as they have no symptoms, they may return to school. So day 1 starts on the day after the last exposure. So if may I use you as an example? Sure. Thank you. So if Mrs. Agnew calls me tomorrow that she's ill and has tested positive, or I actually say, let's say she's ill tomorrow on Wednesday, goes and gets a test and doesn't get the results until Thursday. So the results are on Thursday. She might call me and say, Joe, you're one of my close contacts. We sat together at the meeting less than 6 feet apart. You didn't have a mask on, so you'll need to quarantine, okay? So I go back to the exposure date. That's considered day 0. Day 1 would then be tomorrow, even though she didn't report it to me until Thursday. So my 5-day quarantine would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And if I wanted to, I could come back to work on Monday, as long as I wear a mask for days 6 through 10, which would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. And if I have no symptoms and I wear a mask, then I can come to school or do my job and come to work. And if I have no symptoms after that, I could remove it on day 11 if I would choose to do so. So that's the way the current plan is, and when that information goes out, that's how it's supposed to be shared with a parent. That plan will change, those scripts will change depending on what the vote is this evening. So option B, if option B is the one that is selected, then that process will stay the same. If option A is the one that's selected, then the script would change, and a parent would be called to say that your child was a close contact on this day. If you would like them to remain in school, they must wear a mask, have no symptoms, and wear a mask for the entire 10 days. And as long as they comply with that, we're good to go. You would say yes as a parent if that's what you want to do. If not, they would be sent home for the 5-day quarantine. But if in that 10-day period they show symptoms of COVID-19, then we would send them home. Okay?
Can I say something?
Sure.
So, my son, close contact, sent home. He has a 504 plan, so now he's online reading in Google Classroom, which is his problem. He has a reading problem. Trying to do his work himself. Comes back to school because he gets tested, he's negative, he can return. The day he returned, I got a phone call that the last half day that he was there, he was exposed again, so I have to now pull him again. I'm like, wait, he just came back, he was quarantined for 5 days. It doesn't matter, you have to come and get him again.
So I would absolutely like to check in on that case to see when that happened, because I don't know that one, but I absolutely, after the meeting, if you give me your child's name, I will certainly look on the tracker and see when those exposures happened.
I mean, he was out for 2 weeks over this and never even got sick.
So your plan A, option A of what we're voting on tonight would be your choice of the one, because they can come back with a mask.
So he's 2 weeks behind. And he
Right.
can't
So
get
you would
out
send him with a
until
mask
he
then?
again.
You'd be okay sending him with a mask to be able to come
He wears a mask
in?
every day anyway.
Okay.
So I would like to know so I can check into that case that you just shared. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Jill, my question is though, the student has COVID, so they can't come back on a certain date. Who communicates that to the parent and the student that they can't come back until January 31st, for example? Is it the principal, the school nurse, or a combination of?
Combination, it could be any of those. It could be myself if I jump on and help. Had I been here last week.
What's the normal SOP though? Is it the principal and the nurse?
I'd have to let the principals answer that question. In their building, who makes the majority of those calls?
Yeah, either our staff and the nurse, but there's almost always a consult between, like, you got it on day 10, so I count to get my 5 days
I'm not
as a
questioning
cheat.
that. Is it written down somewhere that I can't come back till January 31st? Because kids come back earlier than they're supposed to, and then you run into that dilemma.
Sometimes.
Yes, it's in the tracker of the date that they were exposed, and the date that they have to mask till, then the date that they can return without a mask. Or if they're out and they're positive, the date of their exposure and the date that they can return. And that is, at least at Snyder, it's met. The parents are met at the door, typically by one of the nurses or the LPN that's there, and that's explained to them. She typically makes the call. If I make the call, there's a script I go through. If one of my secretaries is helping me with the call, it's the same thing. This is they've come into contact with somebody that has COVID. Here's the date they can return. If they have to mask,
And that's marked down somewhere.
What's
So
that?
It's marked down somewhere at your school, so in case the student comes back early,
Yeah.
they're not let into the
yes.
school.
We have had that where a student will come back.
That's
early.
just my question.
We've had to call a parent to say, oh, their date, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And all those individuals you listed, the administration, the nursing staff, and the secretary team, have access to that spreadsheet that has all that information on it. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
And it's in Skyward too, if they're not supposed to be in school because they're quarantined, correct? At the high school?
Well, I don't know that it's in Skyward with the date. I know that they put the Q in, right? They
It's
put
the
the, they put the,
attendance
they
code,
put the
right?
state, they put the code in for the quarantine. I don't know that the date is there. They have the code.
So the attendance would be blocked in Skyward. I don't know that a parent would see it necessarily.
No, I meant just the teachers would know.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I make a suggestion? If you contact Anthony Ward, who's a SARE taxpayer, I know will help you, you can, just like if the student goes on a field trip, they can black out their whole attendance with an O for the day. In our district, in other districts that use Skyward, they send a notification, it's Q-E, and the teacher can't even enter any attendance for all the days. I can look for 2 weeks ahead and see how many kids are going to be out of quarantine.
We do enter that.
So then the teacher has to see it. So if it's a Q in there and the child's in your room, that should be an immediate, you got to go to the nurse.
That's right.
Yes.
So again, maybe they don't understand it, I don't know. We were trained on all that. Our school nurse had a meeting with us and, you know, that's, and it's in writing as well. Maybe that's something we need to do again, I don't know. What happens if a student comes off the quarantine, this will be more high school level, on a non-school day? So now they want to play basketball or they want to wrestle. How does that work? Like if their last day from a close contact is a non-school day or whatever, do they just attend their event? I don't know.
Well, I mean, two pieces to that. If they're a positive, they have to go through the COVID return to play protocols. If they're a close contact, this is the same situation. Every coach gets an email from the secretary that says Barry Claypool is out until whatever date. They must wear a mask until whatever date. And so the coaches are aware of that. So if it happens on a Saturday,
That's what I
then, yeah, they can come back on Saturday and be masked for those 5 days and go from there.
So
yeah.
now, if the new plan passed, they would just have to be masked that entire time.
Be masked for the
Miss
10 days,
activity
yep.
At all, correct?
Yep, correct.
Correct.
That would be good. We got less chance of events.
So are you guys voting on this tonight?
Yes.
I think we would all agree, the majority of the people here, that the option A is the best option, but the kids have, somebody has to make sure that there's accountability. I mean, whether you're for a mask or without, or for not wearing masks, if you're supposed to have a mask, you need to have a mask on. It's no different than you go to work and if you're supposed to wear a mask, you're gonna wear a mask or you're gonna be held accountable. It has to be the same thing. Somebody has to make sure that there's accountability.
Consistently.
Always.
Right.
And it's tough at the high school, from our last meeting, the kids don't want to wear them, well.
I mean, that's.
And we don't have one-on-one.
I mean, I don't think anybody's
sorry.
disagreeing that that's probably the most reasonable approach because kids can't afford, we can't afford for our kids to keep being out of school. But on the flip side, how is it gonna work and who's gonna hold them? Who's gonna make sure that the kids are wearing their mask when they're supposed to be wearing their mask? And if they're not wearing a mask, what's the result? I mean, what do they do?
It's Snyder, I've asked the teachers, if the kids that are supposed to wear their masks don't have them on correctly, that they speak to them 2 times and remind them that they are to wear their mask. After the 2 times, they come and see me, and then I will make contact with home and say, if they don't wear their mask, they can't stay.
That definitely needs
And
to happen
that's
within
just
the
a,
high school.
that's just a guideline, that's just what we have to follow if the kids want to stay in school.
I think maybe teachers need to hear it again, because I know of a case where a kid came back a day early. Not until 8th period did a teacher pick up on it and say, oh, this child's not supposed to be here. It took from the morning to 8th period before it was recognized.
Mr. Hendrick, do you want to address that? Go ahead.
Like, sorry, I'm writing it down. I'm going to try to get some more specific information. Like,
Right, but how Mrs. Morel just went through what she does, what are the steps here? What are the high school teachers, the junior high and high school teachers supposed to do when a student's supposed to have a mask on and they choose not to put it on? What are the steps?
the student would get sent to Mr. Howie and he has a conversation with them and generally it works out. There have only been a few cases this year where we've said, then you're going to have to go home. But there have been a few of those.
So do the teachers have the opportunity first to, like, she has
Yes,
been
yeah, they would say,
two times?
Dr. Billsley, please.
So
read
it
back
sounds
on.
like we probably need to reiterate that tomorrow at the early dismissal day.
Yeah,
Mr.
but the
Hendry.
teachers would be accountable to make sure that the students that could be a possible close contact, that they're not exposing the rest of the kids and they're still in school. Because I agree, we need to be in school, but we also need to safely be in school for the other kids. So, I mean, walking around with masks like this when you're in close contact isn't wearing a mask. Yeah, so the exact same thing, it needs to be accountability.
And they will fight back. I work in a high school. Anybody, all kids, they don't want to wear them. We don't want to wear them, right? You gotta fight with them. And I can tell you in our district, if they speak to you about it twice, you're going to Black Knight Academy. You don't have the option to be in school the rest of the year. You have to go to solo. We had to do that. And we don't have a mask mandate. We've been optional since September.
And what are their numbers?
I couldn't tell you. Not very many. I can tell you that because the kids that don't want to wear masks, they don't get near. We move our kids. We move our kids after 13 minutes. They have to get up and move in the classroom. They don't sit across from each other. They do 3 seats at a table. We put extra tables out in our hallways near the cafeteria. They cannot sit across from each other at lunch. We had to do those things. And we're accountable. Kids clean every period. At the beginning, the end, they clean their own cafeteria table. I mean, it was a ridiculous process, but we're at day 88, and you know what? They're doing it. Because they don't want to go to Black Knight Academy.
What's our numbers for positives? We said close contacts, but I didn't hear any number about positives.
I don't have that number memorized. Does somebody have that online real quick?
It says 100 cases. I don't know if that means like school-based cases or just students in general.
So that would be any positive case of a student or staff member that's been reported us since the first day of school. So at the high school, it's been 100, and from that, there's been 557 students that have been excluded from school for a number of days. Some of the kids on that 557 have been on there multiple times. So, you know, that number is higher than our enrollment here at the high school. The elementary, did you see that?
It won't load.
Oh, okay.
The service in here.
Total number of positive cases for the 21-22 school year at Snyder is 75, the high school is 100,
Okay, so we had 75 at the elementary school?
according to the track, correct?
Correct.
That's everybody, staff.
That's staff and students together.
My concern with whichever plan you choose is the education of the student. Now, what really brought me to this meeting was when I heard for snow days now, that's going to be, if I understand it correctly, it's going to be counted as an instructional day because they can go on Google. Well, everyone in this room knows that does not work. They are not getting an instructional day. And if they're off for COVID, Google doesn't work. Is that what Abby had? That it doesn't work. There's not enough guidance there. There's no support from the teachers. There needs to be accountability on the teaching end that these people are getting the support they need when they're off. I don't care which plan you use. If there's that many positive cases in the district, they need educational support.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Hendrick, so if they're sent home for not wearing the mask, unexcused absence?
Yes, it wouldn't be excused. One it escalated a little bit and it was a disciplinary situation, so that's why I'm pausing. I'd have to go back and check the specifics with Mr. Howie, but yes, it would be unexcused. And
And if they have multiple offenses, do they have to go to solo?
well, unexcused absences, we take them through the truancy protocols first.
Okay, but I'm saying multiple incidents of not wearing their mask, right? Is there a process in place where we send them to solo?
I'd probably have to handle that on a case-by-case basis, because in some of those situations, it's a kid trying to get out
So
of
we
school.
don't have a policy that
Yeah.
Mr.
X
Shaw,
number, you're going to
We do
solo?
not have that in place as of right now.
I
Can we
think
just make them go solo, like what Margaret's saying?
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, if they don't.
That's on my list to have a discussion about,
Yeah.
so I will do that.
Because for
Any
as
other
long
questions?
as they know they can get away with it, they're just gonna cause havoc for the teachers and
Absolutely,
the
you're right.
the whole time, like, you know, it's just gonna be a nightmare for them. And if they're calling people, tell them they got a close contact, they don't factor that either, you know? This would eliminate a lot of that if the new plan went in based on what Barry's saying. You know, people could just wear the mask and we cut down the workload. People could do what they're supposed to be doing. That's a full-time job right there.
All right, appreciate it.
So when we're not wearing a mask, you're saying is defining your teacher, your principal, your superintendent, or anybody else.
And coordination.
So, I know it's a mask, but it's no different, so why won't we have a plan in place? If you don't wear your mask, it's the same as not doing your schoolwork, listening to your principal, or, right?
Yeah, so there's a plan in place. The plan does not include moving to SOLA here at Sayre at this point in time.
Right.
But that's certainly something I will consider and have conversation about.
Right, but there is a procedure that they
Yes.
have to follow.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
Okay. So, any further discussion from the board? So I'd like to recommend the board approve option A or B of the updated health and safety plan. I guess, do I have a motion to approve option A?
Make a motion.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have a motion to approve option B?
Can we vote on the A motion?
Oh, we're vote that, yeah, that makes sense, sorry. So we have a roll call for option A.
All right, we'll begin with Ms. Olson,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Hickey,
Yes.
Mrs. Metz,
Yes.
Ms. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Katrina,
Yes.
and Mrs. Agnew. I was looking to see if that computer was on.
No, my battery. Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess there's no, yes.
Yes. So that's unanimous.
Yes, so I guess there's no need to move on to option B.
Thank you.
So with that, upcoming meetings, we have technology on February 8th at 5:30 in the admin conference room, curriculum and instruction February 8th, 6:30 in the admin conference room, finance February 15th at 5:30 in the same room, and athletics and recreation February 15th at 6:30 in the high school. Library, right here. So, we got buildings and grounds on February 15th at 7:30 in the admin conference room, and community relations and wellness on March 8th at 5:30 in the admin conference room. So yeah, we got one add-on.
Well, it's not an ad of a meeting, it's just to put out to the people that are here and those that are watching online, that all of those meetings are public meetings and anyone and everyone is permitted to attend those meetings and participate in them.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Committee reports, athletics and recreation, Mr. Shaw.
Next meeting is February 15th, 6:30. At our last meeting, we talked about, we had an athletics meeting before our school board meeting, and everything that took place was discussed.
Thank you very much. Community relations, Mrs. Kmetz.
Good evening. March 8th at 5:30 PM is our next meeting. At our last meeting, we talked about some of the items we have upcoming for the next year. The biggest one is the homecoming parade, obviously, but it's quite a few months out. We are working on some other community relations and wellness items here in the district. So if you want to come out to some of our meetings and help us get some of that going for our students in our community, build a little bit of morale within our district, be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kmetz. Finance, Mr. Hickey.
Yes, we had finance meeting tonight. We discussed our charter school costs. They are on the rise this year. We got an update on our audit. The audit was a very good, clean audit. We will have a report, hopefully, from our auditor at our next finance committee meeting. And we're looking at the budget. So budget preparation is beginning right now, and the budget will not be until the end, what is it, May?
May for
when we do the approval budget, but they've started, we're starting the budget rolling right now. And that's it. The next meeting is the 15th of February at 5:30.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hickey. Saturday Creek, Mrs. Agnew.
Yeah, the main thing is Open Forest is coming up, which is on March 5th. Anybody interested in coming up to help out? It's from 10 to 2. Otherwise, not very much is happening there up until that point. The other side of that, I will say, the exploratory committee that's been looking at the building up there. We've been meeting since August when the board approved that we could look into and see if there was something we could do with that building instead of having it just sit there. We've met every month since then. We're looking at getting some quotes on abatement into it, either gutting it or tearing it down. We're had a lot of ideas that have been thrown around, different people on the committee or in the community that have called in. Kind of a multi-purpose building perhaps or something. There's some different ideas that they're talking about that's a possibility. And we're continuing to work on it. Right now, like I said, we're looking for the quotes. And then the biggest thing is we're going out for grants to take care of, to do whatever we decide onto it. It's not something we're looking for the district to fund, but we would like the district to still keep it within the district because of the center being out there. Cross-country track is out there and everything involved in that, instead of having who knows what out there in front of it. So that about it, I think, that we talked about.
That's a lot of what we talked about, absolutely.
Okay? And that's all that I have on it.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Agnew.
Mr. Petrini?
Yes, sir.
There was a deadline for that, right? January? For the committee? To bring something to the board?
Yeah, there was a deadline of
January something, right?
Yep, at the end of January.
Okay. Do we know the date?
January 18th. Today.
Mr. Claypool?
Yes, sir.
Question.
Sure.
How many offers have we had to buy the property up there in the last 2 years?
One firm, one interested, but never came through with a final offer. And then one request to use the space, but it wasn't something that they were looking to pay us. It was like a softball group or something.
Did we ever vote on this to accept or reject anybody's offer?
I know we discussed it. I can't remember if we got to a vote or not.
Because
I
we've
don't
been
think
kicking
we
the
got
can
to
down
a
the
vote.
road for at least 3 years on this. That I'm aware of. Right?
Yeah,
It keeps getting extended. There's no action.
It didn't come to a vote as to sell because it never made it that far. What came to a vote was this committee, and they had till the end of January to come up with a plan to let the board know.
We just can't keep kicking the can down the road. We have to do something one way or the other. Either the committee group is going to obtain money to purchase it, right? Because it would be independent of the school district, right? Is that what your
No,
committee's
that's
about?
what we were looking at doing. I just said the district wants to, if the district wants to keep it within the district, we don't want to sell
We
it.
didn't want to sell it.
That's not what we were looking at.
Okay, what is the, just clarify for me, what's the purpose of your committee then? To keep it for the school district or
Yes,
for someone to purchase
For the school
it?
district, to come up with a plan
So
of
how does
a
that-
purpose for the school district, for the community, and the school. That's the plan. I mean, that's what we talked about from the very beginning.
How does keeping it serve the students at SARE? Because it's great if it's a community center, and I understand with the grants, you have to keep it with the school or community, different things, but keeping it with the school, I'm wondering how it serves students at SARE as a
What we're
community
looking
center.
for doing, or, I mean, right now, like I said, the cross-country track that's where it's at, is out there. The environmental center, which has had a lot of usage and has
The
grown.
building is not a cross-country track.
No, that's what we're just talking about, the building to make it into something, whether it's classrooms. Science classrooms would be terrific for teachers to be able to take their kids out there and learn all kinds of stuff being out in the environment.
Have we
There's a
got
lot
a
of things
quote
to do.
how much it would cost to refurbish the school?
No, that's what I just said, we're going out for quotes for that to find out, and then
So
we can
in-
go from there.
So in 2.5 years, we've never got a quote?
No, nobody ever went this far, that's why I finally said, why don't we look into this?
Okay, that's not my recollection, but okay.
Does anybody?
What were we committed to on the 6-month deadline? Because I
Just
understand
to
that,
decide if we're gonna do something with it or just let it go.
as far as the offer that was made, because they were following that 6-month deadline, what did we commit to? Maybe not officially, but what is the person who's made the offer, what is their understanding of the 6-month deadline? Because we've made a commitment openly to the community, and we need to hold that. We need to remain responsible to the things that were said and commitments we make.
So you just want to make a vote, do we sell it or we keep it and keep going? That's pretty much what you're...
No, I'm asking a question, what commitment did we make to the 6-month deadline? What's
We
the
didn't make a
understanding?
commitment, just the fact that we're going to look into it and whether we want to keep it within the school district or sell it. So that's the two options.
I mean, that person's been involved for several years at this point that was interested in the building. So 6 months ago, you know, I reported to him that the board had decided that they were going to do a study and make a decision, you know, and put together a report in 6 months. So we didn't commit one way or another to that gentleman, and there's still pieces of the process where we kind of went on hold at this point. We've got plans for a subdivision out there should the decision be made to sell by the board at some point, but they have to be approved by the county. So the plans have been drawn up, and you know, I think the county has to approve them, and then it kicks to Litchfield, and then Litchfield approves them. So that's where that part of the process is at. So if the county or Litchfield decided not to allow the subdivision, which I don't know that they would or wouldn't, then, you know, that would stop it. And the person that was potentially interested in purchasing the property would, or, you know, the 5 acres was aware of that and all those pieces and aware of this. And they've inquired recently, you know, as to what the status is. So, you know, they're obviously still interested in that 5 acres, so.
Mr. Claypool, question. So it's 5 acres and the building, right? That's the person's
Yeah, the
offer?
5 acres is inclusive of the building, yes.
And that was the gentleman's offer? Or lady?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, my suggestion is at our next board meeting, we
Make a decision.
put a vote. Are we keeping it or are we selling it?
We'll put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
So discussion points, COVID, close contacts.
So we did discuss that a lot.
We
have
yeah,
a
we
plan. So
beat that around a lot. We kicked that can around a lot. Anything else, Dr. Lozer, you want to add with COVID?
No, I don't have anything else to add about COVID. No. But I do appreciate the suggestions, the comments, the questions that come from parents, the calls or the emails. I hear you loud and clear. We need to do some reteaching here, and we'll take care of that, right? So we'll do that, especially with the new plan. I think that needs to be in print out to families, and it needs to be in print to staff. I'm hearing that we need a little more clarity on how masking is to be done and what the steps are if students are not following those rules. So, you know, we'll get those in print and get that information out there.
I have one discussion point on the COVID.
Sure.
If a group of students, the junior high basketball team, for example, would like to self-segregate to keep themselves safe for a sporting event, is that something that we can allow in our classrooms?
So I wouldn't do that myself under my rule.
Well, I'm not
but
saying dictate it, but if they came to a teacher and asked, like, hey, we are doing this because we have a tournament, is it okay if we sit in this section of the classroom?
Right, so I wouldn't dictate, but I would allow them to voice that and allow the teacher to make that happen for them if that's what they want to have happen. Yeah, I would allow them to do that if the teacher wants to make that happen for them.
Because I understand not wanting to miss your sporting events because you're
Absolutely.
potentially exposed to somebody else.
Yeah.
And
And
we'll have
then,
a
did you
talk-
say, Mrs. Green, that was the 7th grade basketball team? 7th and 8th grade, so.
And we'll talk
to be
about-
young teenagers to voice that, you know, opinion, I appreciate that.
Well, they've been undefeated all season, so they want to go with this tournament and stay undefeated. And they did
Sure.
get back pretty good a couple times against their biggest opponents by close contacting, but they still won. So they want to make sure they have everyone.
All right.
I have a question about the Litchfield. I'm sorry to go back there again. But, Ms. Zachman, didn't you just say that you were getting quotes or bids or something?
Yes, we are.
Why are we voting next month on selling or not selling before we get these bids in?
Because we had a deadline, and there's been no quotes or bid.
Yeah, but she said that they're coming.
Nothing is currently set up. They've yet to be contacted.
Nothing is set up for these bids?
It's been 6 months and no one has put in the work to make progress.
It took a while for us to get somebody up there to look at it and tell us what the opinions were of it and what to do with it. And once he did that, now it's going on.
It's, now coming to the point where you're gonna get bids and you're gonna find out something, and now you're shutting it down.
No, that's not that at all. This has been going on for 3 years.
It's been going on a long time, I know.
Okay.
I don't think
worked
it's,
in Litchfield School.
I don't think it's a shutdown. It's, I mean, they were given 6 months. So in February, if we vote to extend that, then we can extend that. I mean, that's the other side of it. We can vote to say, nope, we're done with it.
Okay.
Or we can vote to continue it, right? It could go either way.
Okay.
So once you get the quotes, the committee will work to get grants, is that the plan? Because I know at one point, the other Mr. Katrini Joe, his crew has been trying to get grants.
Yeah, and that
For
he's
the
on the committee and
Conservation
he's,
district, so this is separate from them? From the conservation district, you are separate from
yes,
them?
he is on our committee.
Right.
But he's not doing it for the conservation district because different things that have happened, especially COVID, they're not able to do anything themselves because they would love to see classrooms up there for them to use and things like that. So he is on board with it and would like to, that may be part of what may be able to be used for once, we decide on what's going on with it.
So will Dr. Teachin be responsible to get the grant money for that, or how's that going to work?
Dr. Delogio has talked with Dr. Tejan a
So
little bit about,
directly to
yes.
the school?
Yes, because it is the school, yes.
So most of those grants, if I can add on to that, most of those grants need a township partnership or a city partner or borough to partner with us. And a couple members of our committee had gone to Litchfield Township's meeting on early January to ask if they would support that process. Most of the grants that are out there for community-based centers and such need to be community-driven. They cannot be driven directly by a school district. Dr. Tejan and I sat down and went through, oh my goodness, several grants and looked at all the qualifications in order to qualify for those grants and all the particulars that they needed to have. And none of them applied specifically to the current setting that we have as a school district, right? So you have to be able to partner with someone. And so members of the committee had gone to the township committee meeting to solicit advice, or not advice, partnership and support from them to do that. I think that was Joe Quattrini, and I'm not sure who else went. And he has offered his knowledge and expertise in grant writing as well. So it would be in a partnership more so than any. He also found an individual, I'm losing her name right now, but she writes grants for different areas. That's her job. And so she would not charge us in any way to participate in that as well. I'll remember to bring her name. Say again?
Supervisors, they formally voted that they would do.
No, they didn't vote. That was just an informational thing.
Right.
But they didn't say no.
They vote before our next February meeting, so it's official that they would absolutely co-sponsor.
They didn't say whether they're going to vote. They just were taking the information and thought it was a good idea that we were doing something with it.
No, I understand that, but before we put it on our agenda, if they're not willing to partner with us.
True,
it's a
yeah,
done deal.
I see what you
So
mean,
we need
Margaret,
to get
yeah.
them to vote, I think, before you can vote.
Yeah.
So you can vote to extend it, but if they won't partner, it's a dead issue.
Right.
And it needs to be a formal vote that they're willing to do it, because those members could change.
Right.
The body itself has to have a legal vote that says, yes, this community is going to do it, not just individual members.
Yeah, I don't think it was brought up for them to vote is all. They were just given the information at that particular meeting anyway to get it rolling. But yes, yeah, that's a good point that I'll bring up to one of them.
When's your next meeting?
Ours?
Hers.
February, yeah, wait a minute. Let me look on the calendar. I didn't bring that with me.
Let me know.
The 9th, February the 9th, yes. It's a Wednesday.
At 6 p.m.
6.
So the 2022-2023 school calendar.
So it's on there for discussion, open discussion, the days that are on there. If I could, I'd like to respond to some of the questions that Mr. Shaw had or comments that he made about the schedule. So contractually with the teaching, the professional staff, we have a 187-day contract. And then we base our professional development days off of that and our student days off of that. So Mrs. Berry had asked, when you were on the board, you had asked the question about the student release days, and there were comments that she had received from community members and others about the number of days that we release. So we have 15 this year, 15 days that we release early. The high school releases at 1 o'clock, and the elementary releases at 1:30 or 1:25, but it's close to 1:30. So the high school has 2.5 hours, and the elementary team has 2 hours. And so one of the things that I did when Mrs. Berry had asked, and I did a little legwork on that, I spent time the next several days digging up schedules across the county, and I had put a spreadsheet together, and if my computer had died of the battery, I'd pull that up and share that information with you. But along with the instructional hours that were missing due to professional development time, SARE currently exceeds the other 6, and it's not a competition, I don't want to put it out there as a competition, but even with the student release days, we have more instructional time on the books. The state requires 900 hours at the elementary school level and 990 instructional hours at the secondary level from 7 to 12. And we far exceeded that number, or have on the books exceeding that number, minus any 2-hour delays, which I think we have 2 so far this year, and have the amount to play with. So before we take this to a vote, I certainly want to take the information and any input. If we want to make an adjustment to the calendar, we want to make the days purposeful, we want to make them useful, we want them to have time to collaborate and work together, both with the administration, with departments. So there's a variety of things that happen on those days. We have time to have department meetings. We have PLCs, or professional learning communities, where we have specific goals that we're working on as teams. So there's a lot of variety of things that are happening on those days in addition to the professional development. One of the things that we took away, Mr. Shaw, you had mentioned about a cornhole, right? And so I want to share the background on that information since you brought that up. I'd appreciate just spending that. So we absolutely did take an afternoon time in this with the staff and administration. Paraprofessionals were, custodials were invited to attend. That came from a collaborative meeting with teachers and other staff members, and actually was an idea from one of the professional staff members from the teaching group at that meeting. And so we have been working on, when I got here and I did surveys across the school district and the teaching group and a variety, morale was one of the top 3 things that we needed to work on and get together and have team building activities and work collectively together. And so when I asked the teachers, well, what are some of the things you would like to do to build our team and to make us stronger? That was an idea that came from one of the teachers. And so that's why we found time to do that, to spend time together collectively. And some people would see that from the outside from a different perspective, not to be maybe a valuable use of time, but I think it's really important that we get together collectively and build our team and strengthen our team as a whole. It's going to take time to do that, when I have those conversations with staff members about morale and a variety of things. So I absolutely want to respond to that. That is a true statement. That did happen. We have a conversation about what we should do at the next one. There's a couple ideas on the table, and absolutely the ideas that we were trying to put in place and think about for this year have come from staff. Another thing that we're doing to support the mental health of our staff this year is working with the Sweethearts and Heroes of Tom Murphy and Pat Fish. As they're coming in, they're coming back. So we want to sustain some of those components and not just have a once and done. So, we want to do some community building along with that morale building that we're doing with our staff. So, we had that event in the fall. One of the ideas that's not in place yet, but we've talked about, one of the ideas that was given was a cleanup day, right? That we spend a little bit of our time just working and through our community. Whether or not that happens, I don't know, but I love the fact that they're bringing the ideas forward of how we can work collectively together as a unit and build those friendships that we need together. Okay?
What would you say, what was the number of hours for the high school?
Sure, the state requires 990. It's 900
Instructional time, not
instructional
just
time, right. So when I calculate that time, I subtract homeroom, Movement through the hallways, lunchtime, and announcements. There are specific things that school requirements from PDE that do not count toward that instructional
And
time.
when?
When is
It's
it?
not instructional to study hall.
When can be instructional for
It's
some
not
kids for
instructional, it's there,
supplemental.
though. It should not be counting. It's not actually instructional time. It's kids reading books on their phones, they are not using it for instructional time. Please do not in any way count that in. And in all due respect, the teachers union long before these events happening, they were cleaning the community, they were serving lunch in Litchfield, they did things outside the school day. I still think, as Mr. Shaw said, and I said before, why, when we have the lowest scores around, are we taking instructional time away for professional development? You're giving the kids opinions that it doesn't matter. How many teachers, when they come in, especially at the high school level on a 2-hour dismissal day, the kids are not working, they're playing Kahoo and this or that. It's not pushing instruction forward. I know that from my own experience. 17 times a year, and then when it's a questionable snow day, when does it come into the point, well, we've already done so many, so we better send the kids to school or we better not leave early. I still can't believe this. You're the only district I know of doing it. I didn't know there were that many till he said it, but I mean, this is just crazy. They're professionals. They can do work outside the day. Morale can be improved outside the day. If our kids' scores were going up, it might make sense to take 2 hours, 4 hours a month. But our kids' academic improvement is not going up, particularly when our kids, 557 close contacts at this building. Where are we making up that learning loss when these parents are saying there's no online instruction? I can't imagine sending kids home every 2 hours every other Wednesday and thinking I'm going to cover content.
Or we're missing teachers, or
Yeah,
my
lots of
child
teachers
had
are-
spent 2 days in the auditorium last week for more than half of his day.
I mean, there's a lot of
In
factors.
the auditorium doing study hall.
How does that get counted into your instructional time that you're counting? When there's not substitutes available, so the kids are spending a majority of their day in the auditorium?
Yeah, so it's not counted as an individual student, it's counted as a whole school.
But see, it's not true.
Yeah.
That are without instruction for more than half of the day.
I mean, 3 classes, they went to 3 classes.
You're looking at 7 long-term, multi-generation Sarah families going to Sarah Atkins next year because of academics, because of these reasons. Because their kids are saying, why go? We don't do anything when we go there. That's a problem. That has not been a problem here in Sarah previously.
Does the board have any input
Dr.
on the
Jim.
calendar?
Anything else on the calendar?
Dr. Joe, I just want to say thank you for following up. The only other concern I would say, I love the fact that the reason you gave, great, for your teachers, but what about our students?
That's right.
They
get
no
paid
offense to any teachers.
No.
I'm just saying our students, you know, while we have them, we should do everything we can. Why don't we do cornhole days for them? Is that instructional? Every teacher in the building will say that's not instructional. So again, I understand, but we need to think about our students. Thank you.
Morale wasn't the only big word that came up in your word
Absolutely.
salad. And really, our academics have not improved. And part of that is COVID. But then why are we taking time away? Your professionals are great here. They can do curriculum maps, they can do learning outside of the day, or just shorten your day. If our day is that much longer, it solves the safety issue we've always had with no one on duty outside of the school. End your day at 3:10. That gives your teachers 20 minutes every day. They can collaborate for 15 or 20 minutes. Nobody says it has to be a whole chunk. I mean, I think we're wasting a lot of time here over 3 years. I'll be honest, my kids might be family 8 because there's no way in this day and age that a child should be missing school 17 times for an early dismissal for in-servicing. That's just unheard of. Make their day shorter. They won't miss time when they leave for sports if they get out at 3:10 instead of 3:26. We'd be able to have people on duty. And our parking lot would be safe unlike now. Because it's not right now. There's nobody out there.
Does the board have anything else on the school calendar? All right. Principal's reports, Mrs. Morello.
Thank you. Our enrollment as of the 18th is 501, with 14 of those students being enrolled in SOLA. We did have several enrollments take place over the Christmas break. I'm going to go back to my notes, so if you can bear with me, a lot of it has to do with activities that took place before the holiday. Our 5th grade, instead of a gift exchange this year, they donated their money to the Salvation Army along with the Animal Care Sanctuary, so we appreciate their efforts with that. Candy Cane Lane, our shopping experience, K-6, was very successful. We had some help from FBLA, so that was very nice. The mobile dentist came and visited during December, and approximately 87 or 90 students were seen, so they didn't have to leave the building. Parents didn't have to come and pick them up, so we found that to be very successful. It was also a week of coding activities that Mrs. Leonard did with the STEM classes that she had the week of December 6th through the 10th. Again, thank you to everybody that participated here at the high school with the Christmas tour, Pictures with Santa. Again, FBLA came over and did many projects in kindergarten through 3rd grade, so that was very well received. And we just finished our first round of Too Good for Drugs. It has now moved on to kindergarten through 2nd grade, starting up for the second half of the school year. So that's all that we have right now. Getting ready for our second round of FAST and EdInsight testing to be input by our staff. So we're getting ready to look at those results as well. So that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Morrell.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hendrick.
We're working through our mid-year benchmark assessments at this time, or this month as well. Tomorrow we have Todd Moyer from the IU is coming to observe our 7th and 8th grade math classes. He's going to work with us to implement a multi-tiered system of supports, or an MTSS programming. We're going to start with those math classes. MTSS is a framework that helps educators provide both academic and behavioral strategies for students with various needs. So I'll be bringing more information to probably the curriculum meeting and to you guys as we go through that. Our current enrollment is 462. We've had 2 students switch to SOLA here at the semester break, which puts us at about 34 if my math is correct. And musical tryouts are conducted after the holiday break, and casting has been completed. Cast starts practice in earnest this week, and this year we're putting on The Wizard of Oz in early April. That's it for me.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Tejan.
Yes, so access testing will be underway next week for our English as a second language students. Mrs. Lezak will be working to complete that testing within the testing window, which is from January 6th through February 18th. I would like to extend a huge, huge thank you to all the special education staff, as well as Mrs. Shannon Moore for helping to prepare for the special education monitoring. We had a huge portion of things that were due last Friday, the 14th, so all of that electronic stuff has been uploaded. We still have a lot to do in terms of, in paper and on files, so we will continue preparing for that. The on-site scheduled visit is the week of February 14th, so still moving in the right direction, I guess I'll say. Regarding the State Systemic Improvement Plan, or the SSIP team, we meet monthly. We'll be scheduling our January meeting pretty shortly here with our patent consultant. And the purpose of this team is to provide some supports for students who may be at risk of dropping out of high school. So the funding does sort of target the special education population, but the funding and the programming that's developed will help all students. And then lastly, so the district submitted an application to Bradford County and CCBH for community school-based behavioral health. So after they review our data, if our district is approved, this will allow us to have a mental health team right on site. So we'll target the middle school level, 6th through 8th grade. Any students who need social emotional intervention, that team will be right on site. Looking forward to hearing from them about that. And that's all for me.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Tejan. PSBA, Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Petrini. Just want to make mention that the federal government has announced that they'll be increasing the number of COVID-19 tests available to schools by 10 million per month. That's across the nation. Also, the State Board of Education is proposing a new state science standards, and they would be coming effective July 1st, 2025, giving about a 3-year period for schools and teachers to update their curriculums and as well as their materials. More on that to come. January 20th, new directors monthly exchange is taking place, 12:30 p.m. That'll be held every third Thursday through June. And let's see here, also the January-February PSBA bulletin is out. Good stuff on there for new school directors, as well as a nice article for Arden Tewksbury, a gentleman that lives in Susquehanna County over in the Blue Ridge School District, if I'm not mistaken. 60 plus years of being on the school board over there. So, and also I just wanted to also let everyone know after 2 weeks ago, still no word on the new consortium that PSBA might be getting into with other states around the nation. PSBA is probably one of about 20 state school board associations that have left the National School Board Association. So I know they'll be working on that during the month of January. Hopefully we'll have more information on that next month. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. The only thing I have for tonight is to say thank you to everybody that came. You know, we talk about transparency, and I've been on the board for, this will be my 6th year, and this is the biggest crowd I've ever seen since I first started. It's great to get your guys' feedback. I appreciate it. I want to know. I don't know how many times at the end of a school board meeting I said, I'd like some members of the district to come in and tell us what's going on. We can't be everywhere all the time, and you guys are the eyes and the ears. I've got them too, right? I'm a parent. I've got kids in the district just like you guys do, and deal with the same problems and questions and concerns, and we push out all this information, and it's confusing because sometimes we get inundated with too much of what's going on. So we need to be concise and clear and simple. So I appreciate your feedback, and thanks for coming tonight, and hope to see you more often. Well, maybe not so much you. Yes, even you, Mr. Shaw.
His wife sends him so he's not home.
So, with that, Dr. Grosjean.
Yeah. So you took that first line from me, right? So I'll second what he said. You know, some people think that bringing up controversial comments or something that's different than what we might be doing causes, that unraveling or peeling away of that onion, but it's all good, right? So when you bring it forward, things get looked at differently and things have different perspectives, and we need your perspectives as much as we need the board's perspectives, the teachers' perspectives, our paraprofessionals, our custodial team, our administration. You need to look at it from a variety of angles. There's no doubt about some of the things that, the first Mr. Shaw that spoke, right, Jordan? Is that, okay. When he had said, right, we've been in this ever-changing, unknown world for the past 2.5, I call this year 3 of our pandemic that we're in. I cannot tell you how many times the rules have changed, and we try to synthesize that information and get that information out there to the parents. And we've done well sometimes, and other times we have fallen, right? And people will call us on that. We try to do better every time. But without your input, we can't do that. And so I do appreciate that. And he spoke of the parent advisory group that I pushed out in the last snapshot that went out in early January to all families, and it was in the opening paragraph for myself as a welcome to the new year and new ideas. And so that came from a conversation that I was having with a parent that was frustrated about the online Google Classrooms that we have and the the students at home and they're feeling lost. And so we had some conversation and I said, you know, I feel like it might be time to have a parent advisory group that meets on a monthly basis that's open. And I've had more than, it's close to 20 individuals that have reached out to be a part of that conversation. We're going to meet here in the library. That's not a closed meeting, that's an open meeting. And I simply asked people to email me so I could be prepared with this space that we need to have. We have the right number of seats available, and that it really is an opportunity for people to come forward and voice their ideas, their concerns. And I'm always one of those that says, if you bring a problem, bring a solution, right? And so when you think through those pieces that you have, you know, there are problems, and we certainly need to look through that lens and try to figure out how to go about solving those. I think with moving to Plan A, Option A on the health and safety plan, you know, as we've all been living through this process over the last 2.5, almost 3 years now, March 13th is coming up right, you know, in another couple months, you know, there's got to be an off-ramp at some point, you know, for this pandemic for all of us, right? And the vaccines are available for children 5 ages and up, and that's a personal choice for each family as however they choose to do that, right? And so with those things, as more things come along for each of us, we can make different choices, right? So the mask mandate went away, so we as a school district decided that each individual could choose what that's going to be. We're looking at the vaccines are available to all, so we want to give the option that close contacts can stay as long as they are non-symptomatic and they have no symptoms. So I think that's a move in the right direction. So if anybody is sitting here in the audience and hasn't emailed me but would like to be a part of that parent advisory group, please email me. I had a few parents email me and say, if it's not closed or you haven't filled all your seats, there's not a number of seats. If 100 people want to sit together and have a conversation, I'd be absolutely welcome to that. So it's going to be an open forum. It's not going to be a shouting match, but I don't see that happening here. I think there's a lot of respect and professionalism that occurs when we're having the dialogue that occurs. So it really is a collaborative effort in order to find out what those you know, those blemishes are, so that we can work together to solve them, because it will get solved faster, more efficiently, and in a better manner if we're working together. Okay? So I wanted to share that, and I just wanted to share the parent advisory again. So I might send another email out to see if there's anybody else that wants to join that group to send me an email. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Very much. Anything else from the board? Any questions about the agenda?
I just have a question. So will the students have an assembly as well to go over the new health and safety plan changes tomorrow?
So I'm going to volley that right back to the principals. So I'm going to give them,
Tomorrow, no, they won't have it tomorrow.
as I'm talking to you, I'm going to give them a couple seconds of think time, Mrs. Berry, right? So they can say how are they going to do that. We'll certainly be sending something out to families. So Mrs. Morel, do you want to respond at the elementary level, how you'll be addressing that for your student body?
What I'll probably do is just go and visit each pod where I stand in the center, and they turn and they listen or visit each classroom. So I'll do it grade by grade. I'll leave it to the teachers to see what they think is more appropriate. It probably won't happen tomorrow. Hopefully by the end of Friday, I'll see everybody's faces. That's my plan as of right now.
Yeah, I don't have time tomorrow, unfortunately, but we will get it out to the high school
I was
kids.
just wondering, are parents supposed to tell the kids, or are they going to cover it at school? That was my rationale for asking the question.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a combination of both, and most of the time it's going to be, well, it will always be a parent decision, right? We will always call the parent to say, here's what's happening, what would your choice be, right? Because you then will say, my child will mask for 10 days to stay in school. And so we'll need to clear with the students what the process is if you choose not to wear a mask and what the consequence will be.
Right.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure students understand there's an advantage now.
Absolutely.
So wear the mask if you can and put it to them on the level that, hey, you won't miss your sports and you can play immediately and that sort of thing. Some parents may not know to explain it that way, but you guys educate. You know the angles. If you know what's going to get canceled, you know what they're going to be pulled from. So that's what I was asking. And certainly coaches need an update too.
Full community.
You got it. Maybe they'll let you use that flash and sign up on camera. The COVID one. I know. Listen, my coworker's husband put it there. Don't say that, please.
So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Aye. Adjourn.